We went from an industry size that we estimated to be 30,000 to 100,000 signups just for Google Analytics.
Hey there Measure Geeks, Julian here, back with another video. Today you are in for a treat because I have one of the web analytics legends on the channel that was there when Google Analytics got started, at least in Europe. Of course, I'm talking about Brian Clifton, best-selling author of analytics books, employee #1 of Google in Europe as the head of web analytics for Europe, and now founder of VerifiedData.com, a cloud-based Google Analytics audit tool. Now I sat down with Brian for our upcoming event, Measure Summit, and we did an extended interview where I was allowed to ask him any question I wanted. So in this interview, you're gonna learn how Google Analytics got started in Europe, what it is like to be at one of the biggest companies or fastest growing companies at that time, where there was just 3,000 employees. We also chat about how the web analytics industry has changed over the years, and we talk about Brian's tool, Verified Data. And in the end, I ask him what he thinks are the biggest challenge for the analytics industry in the next years. So if you want to skip forward to one of these points, have a look in the description down below where we have all the timestamps for you. But for now, we got lots to cover, so let's dive in. All right, welcome back to this extended interview with Brian Clifton here at Measure Summit, and I'm really excited to ask Brian some questions that we haven't quite covered inside of his session, and hopefully this will be of interest to everybody. So I want to just know, Brian, you have had such a long career already in this industry, and I want to go back to the beginning. So when you started out working with Urchin, what was this like? Because this was a new technology. When I started out with Google Analytics, it was already like omnipresent everywhere, and this was the product that we were using. But what was at that time, I guess it was before 2005, the appeal to actually use Urchin?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a science background. I did a PhD in chemistry, so I've always been, that part of my research and my work at university was always about using computers and data to try and understand scientific problems, if you like. So I had a strong interest there. So it was very easy for me once I got into this industry, the web industry, if you like, because that's what it was. It was just the web in those days. There wasn't anything so specific as we have now. But I was obviously drawn to something like web analytics, just from the data and the scientific side. So we're talking about 2001, 2002. So yeah, I'm quite old. What was interesting, so Urchin was a software product, and it was traditional kind of install on your server software. So you put it on your web server, basically, and it was what's called a hybrid product, where they add cookie information to the log files, the standard log files that Apache or something like that would collect, and then they would analyze that. And it was very, very fast because it wasn't cloud-based. It ran on your server, so it was super fast, and I liked it. Because it was so straightforward to set up and so straightforward to use. It was very clear, beautiful user experience, if you like. So I just, fell in love with the product, and I started writing about it. I mean, remember, this is before blogs, before WordPress. I mean, we're going right back now. So, but I started writing articles and PDFs and comparing Urchin with other tools out there. So the leader in those days was Web Trends. They practically invented commercial web analytics tools. But he was just head and shoulders above it, and I had no connection with that company. They were based in California, San Diego, but I built up a reputation of knowing this product very well, and then they started talking to me directly. So the love story started there.
Okay, and when did the whole JavaScript technology came in? Was that just at Google, or was Urchin already this tool where you just install one JavaScript and then suddenly it started tracking?
Yeah, I mean, it always had a JavaScript element, but it really they were looking at this kind of on-demand type approach where people didn't have to install stuff on their web servers, because that was when hosting was moving away. We're talking 2004, 2005 now, where hosting was moving away from, a dedicated server and much more to kind of cloud distributed type environments. So it was getting harder to install software on servers. So they were investigating that just at the point when Google started looking. You got to remember at that time, So 2005, once I joined Google, we did some analysis. The team did some analysis about, how big is the industry? How many people actually use these products? And we came up with a kind of guesstimate. You could look at web pages and get some kind of idea of if they have tracking pixels on there, because the scripts are on there. It's not bulletproof, but you can guesstimate. And we came up with a number of 30,000. So around about the global market for web analytics tools was about 30,000 accounts. Now, it kind of sounds like a big number, but now we're at something like 50 million. 50 million Google Analytics accounts. So you can see the sort of how small and how nascent the industry was there. There were people interested in looking at this, people like me, but it was relatively small. And yeah, when Google came along in 2005 and launched the product for free, so that was the big change they initially made, just making it free when everybody else was paying. And remember, 2005, this freemium model wasn't very well established at all. That came a few years later. So people were shocked about what does free mean? Where's the catch? But then things really exploded in terms of adoption. So I remember that first week. So it was, I think, the 14th of November, 2005. It was a big day, a big evening for me, a big night for me, and the product launch. But within 1 week, within 7 days, we went from an industry size that we estimated to be 30,000 to 100,000 signups just for Google Analytics when it launched. And it was a little bit embarrassing because the growth, the adoption rate was so fast. We weren't expecting that. We were kind of expecting that after maybe 1 year. We just tripled the size of the industry in 1 week. We actually had to close signups. We couldn't allow more people to sign up. And imagine how embarrassing that is for Google. Even back in the day, that was still embarrassing to have to do. And we closed signups for almost a year, I think it was, before opening up again. And the product still ran, but we just couldn't take more users. And it's just grown and grown. And it's almost exponential growth now to the 50 million or so accounts that now exist.
Okay, that is super fascinating to hear. So what was it like when you joined Google? In your bio, you said they just had 3,000 employees. Obviously now it's like this giant, but there must be a growth phase in terms of the employees that came into this product. You were the first one in Europe to actually put it out there, and then yeah, what was it like to launch Google Analytics in Europe? Was there rapid adaptation, but was anybody concerned maybe about privacy as well?
It was chaotic, absolutely chaotic joining Google. I mean, it really was I wish I kept a diary of my times there. Some of the fantastic kind of big things that happened. I mean, we had former presidents of the United States coming to speak at Google offices. Nobel Prize winners, people like that. We went, as I said, I think 2005 was 3,000 people. Within a year, it doubled to 6,000 people. The year after that, I did 3 years there. In the third year, it grew to 12,000 people. And then the following year, just as I was leaving, it grew to 20,000 people. So doubling year on year. And we're talking hundreds of people joining the office every month. So it was very, very chaotic, which is both exciting and also very frustrating. I don't think I ever sat at the same desk for more than 3 months. Office was constantly moving around. So it was a bit scary. I was, when it came to analytics in Europe, I was employee number 1. So I had this grandiose title of head of web analytics for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, but actually it was just me when I joined. And it took a few months before that team started to build up and we started to do more interesting things. But the most I remember is the chaos. But from chaos came really interesting stuff. I mean, I met some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life working there. And I guess I consider it kind of like a hands-on, little bit chaotic MBA. I always wondered, should I do an MBA? And now I think, well, no, I don't need to. I kind of, was there in the middle of this in a great company, and I think most of those values and those good people are actually still there, which speaks a lot for the company.
Yeah. And was there, when people in Europe at least adapted it, nowadays it's very prevalent that we have privacy laws and also a different view on data and how we can use data as the Americans do or as other countries like China do. Was there any inkling of that already at the beginning, that Europeans are a little bit more reserved, or?
No, it was there from the beginning. You got to remember, Google is a very multicultural company. It's kind of difficult to pin down an American, if you like, a traditional American. There's people from really all parts of the world, literally. Some of the countries I've never even heard of, but people are joining. I guess smart people, know no boundaries. But it was interesting right at the very beginning that privacy by design was something not just for Google Analytics, but it was something the company took very, very seriously. I'm not sure where they are now in that. I think they've drifted away, and perhaps we can talk about that. But certainly at the very beginning, the product team was very concerned about this, and Google came asking me to join the company, and one of the important things. I think I had 15 interviews spanning several days. But anyway, it was very important to me to understand, because I've always been a privacy advocate, even before it became a hip topic to talk about. But it was very important to me to understand what were they going to do with this data, who could see it. And it was made clear to me, look, this was a customer tool. It was for customers to understand their online marketing, because if they do that and they understand what works on their website, they're going to spend more money online with advertising. And of course, Google dominates that. So that was a kind of rationale. And just that, this, because some people say, well, internally I'm talking about, some people said to me, well, why don't we turn this tool inside so that we can see exactly what people are doing on some of these big websites? And it wasn't just me, but it was a very strong voice from the product team that said, no, this isn't a tool for Google. This is a tool for end users, and it's going to drive business forward as marketers who, let's face it, in those days were just throwing money at the web because they could make money out of it. But, we knew that people were going to start asking more difficult questions about, is this actually working, and where's the best place to spend my money, or the best times of day, or the best keywords. So we knew people were going to want this information. And I think that business model is still very much valid. If you understand what's going on, why wouldn't you want to drive more online visitors to your site? Because it's a lot cheaper to do that than your offline marketing.
Yeah, definitely. I think Facebook goes the same direction with their tools. But it's interesting to think about, because Google has become so predominant, and then also you had this whole SEO industry, and all these other different kind of forms of marketing. All right, let's step forward a little bit. You left Google, and then you also became a practitioner again, helping companies out. And what would you say has really changed over the years in the industry? Obviously, Google Analytics has become a very dominant tool, but also devices have changed, or use cases have changed. So maybe you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think two things that I guess I wouldn't have expected if I was to look back 10 or so years ago. I think that the growth of mobile, and yes, of course, mobiles were always going to be popular, but just the fact that people use, their small, 3-inch screen to look at websites, I just never thought that would ever take off. Of course, for messaging and social media and stuff like that, but to look at websites and to buy things, I just couldn't see it, 10, 12 years ago. But then I was on an old BlackBerry and things like that. So I think that was a vision that Google had that I didn't quite have, and that has surprised me. I mean, in a lot of the sites that I work with now, it's 50% of traffic is mobile, and sometimes much, much higher. It's rare to see anything less than maybe 30%. So mobile's been very, very important. I think the biggest change as well, in terms of just a general change, is the fact that everything's become personal now. This whole idea of personalizing ads and personalizing the experience and personalizing the visit journey, I really think it's gone in the wrong direction because of the privacy implications. Knowing so much about individuals, even if you try and anonymize them, it doesn't take many data points, as I was saying in my presentation. It doesn't take too many data points to actually identify somebody pretty narrowly. You can almost, certainly with someone like yourself or me, where we do a lot of work online, you type in Google Analytics expert from Sweden, written books. If I'm not number one, I'm going to be on the first page of Google. So it's obvious who I am just with some very general points. I mean, I didn't even give you my date of birth or my age or my even my sex, whether I'm male or female. So that level of personalization scares me, and I think it's gone too far. And I think that's why I think GDPR was kind of, given teeth and came about to avoid this kind of profiling of people that are just wanting to anonymously browse for information. So I think that's the big change that I've seen. I would say that kind of started 2013, 14, something like that, and has been growing and growing the last 5 years. But the last couple of years, I think people are looking at this quite differently now. Because remember, 10, 15 years ago, that phrase "content is king," you had to create great content for, your users. And a big part of that was context. If you create content, you have a context of why the visitor is there. What is their intent? Are they going to buy, or are they just browsing? Are they looking for themselves, or are they looking for somebody else? So it was all about content, and that was driving context. And we seem to have lost that and gone very much down a personal route. I think we're going to come full circle. I think, because of not just the laws, but I think users now expect much more privacy. So I think they will drive it. So that will actually go back to, or move away from personalization and go much more back to the context and the content of what people are looking at as a way of serving a great user experience or a great ad.
Mm-hmm. Great observation. I think, could you maybe speak about the analytics aspect of it? So on the one hand, our industry has been around for a while now, and the question is it really matured in that sense that we now have these clear structure of how you do web analytics? Or do you think that since we have these big trends, as you mentioned, mobile comes in, privacy comes in, is there a way that we are just at the beginning of everything and we need to reinvent ourselves all the time?
Well, I think we're in the middle. I think we are maturing. We're kind of like a teenager, if you like, in development. So we've gone through those early years of figuring out what's the expectations of people that use these tools, what are the sort of features they want. But we've taken, in my view, the wrong path. We've picked a path in our life, if I can use that analogy, of being a bit of a rebel and doing something that just doesn't smell right, doesn't taste right. And that is, this personalization route. And I think we have to take a step back and get on the right track as we grow and mature into an adult. So I'd say we're in the middle there.
Cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about data quality. And let's move into this data quality issue that we are facing. So you obviously have the tool verified data, but what concerns everybody here is the invasion of these new technologies such as ITP from the Safari browsers or AdBlockers, which have been around for a long time. Would you say that generally data quality is getting worse or getting better because we can track more in a sense?
Well, I don't think those kind of those technologies, which are good technologies, they're there about protecting privacy. Certainly the ITP and related tools, they're about making a much better experience from a privacy point of view. I don't think they are damaging data quality because either the entire session is blocked or not. Data quality is really about when things start to fall apart and you can't identify a session, or when it started or when it ended, or there's things missing. So I think it's not really about data quality from those sort of technologies. I think it's more that the pot of data is smaller. So if you get 100,000 visitors per month without any of these tools in place, I think that's shrinking. And it may shrink to maybe 50% of that or somewhere in between. I think the shift now is, or needs to be, much more about building trust, just like you do in the offline world. People like, if you're going to buy something, you like to see the salesman, you like to talk to them, you like to get a feel that they understand what you need and that they care about what you want and what you get. With online, of course, you miss all of that, and that's sometimes a good thing and sometimes not. But I think we have to get back to that building of trust and transparency. So, ITP shouldn't be seen as a threat. It's going to reduce the data pot, but it shouldn't reduce the data quality. And the trick is maybe not the right word, but it's what I do as a consultant is help businesses minimize that impact, minimize the data loss that they could get just by being, transparent and gaining consent of their users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree that there are many points around this, and it's also about the understanding of how you will be using your data in the long run. Okay, so in terms of your tool, Verified Data, I'd love to hear a little bit about how this is being used and how it actually works. So this tool is for Google Analytics, correctly? It's not for any other tool vendor out there, or?
No, I mean, our USP is that we go deep on Google Analytics.
So does it work through the API, or does it look on the website itself? Can you give us a little bit of insights on how the tool works?
Yeah, it's both of those things. So yes, we use the API to collect and examine data, but we combine that with actually scanning the website and looking for content that should be tracked. So looking at data, what is tracked, and comparing that with what data we scan, and the information that we scan and what data is collected. So, for example, without the scanning side of things, if you just looked at the data, how would you know that you're collecting all of the data? Maybe 50% of your pages are just missing tracking, but you may have perfectly good quality data in your Google Analytics account, but you're only seeing half the story. So the only way of knowing that is to go out there and scan pages and listen for data signals and compare that with what is tracked. And we call that the hybrid technique. So both on-page and off-page tests, if you like.
Right. Is the software then a first step in terms of customizing an installation? Because Google Analytics has so many features out there that might not be useful for your website. So how does the tool, or how can the tool help us to understand whether we need to use them or we shouldn't use these different features?
Yeah, so as I say, we scan for content. So an obvious, simple example is, if you're a large site with, a ton of content, and we, look at sites with more than 100,000 pages, for example, sometimes the people looking at the data don't know, for example, if they have PDF downloads or if they have videos. It's kind of buried, or outbound links, or maybe they cross-domain links to other websites that they partner with. These sort of features, they can be very buried. We talked a lot about personal information, personal identifiable information today. Often that's a very, very small fraction of the total data. When it goes wrong, it can be less than 1%, sometimes less than 0.1%. But that 0.1% can still represent 10,000, 20,000 sessions or page views. So a small fraction of the total, you've got this problem of, needles, very small needles in huge haystacks. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find things that are just very, very difficult to find normally. You could do this manually, of course. It's just very laborious and very difficult. So we're looking for problems. The scorecard method that we have is there to show you the bad things, the ugly things. Of course, understanding, we explain where this is coming from, but taking that to the next level, fixing it, that's kind of the job of your IT team or your web development agency to say, okay, then we can see this report has flagged duplicate transactions. Another one of those things that flies under the radar because it doesn't happen very often. But you should never have duplicate transactions. You give that to the e-commerce team and you say, look, we have this transaction happened twice, yesterday and today. Can you please go and figure out why? And it may be a technical issue to do with the e-commerce system. It may be the way the tracking is implemented. It could be both. But we give you the reports and the tools to allow you to really go deep and say, this is the problem. This is when it happened. Can you fix it?
Right. I think also from an automated perspective, it's quite interesting that you can use the software to then run a check again, right? So it's not just a one-time thing where you say, okay, there are duplicate transactions, but if the e-commerce team actually comes back and says, okay, we got rid of it, you can run another test. So how important is it actually to run continuous auditing with such a tool?
I mean, so many times I've had, agencies or IT teams come back to me and say, hey, it's fixed, we're done now. And you run an audit and you say, hold on a minute, we still see the problem. They go, no, it's definitely fixed. And you show them the audit and they go, oh, okay, maybe it isn't fixed. So that's really important. IT teams or development agencies, they have a lot to do. Websites now are big, complicated beasts. So it's very important to obviously recheck after the fixes are done and keep rechecking. And, websites change a great deal. Many people involved, agencies, both internal teams, external teams, typical staff in the digital world stay around maybe 2 or 3 years. So it's very important to recheck this. And I think as a guide, I would simply say, look, start with monthly audits, and have a monthly meeting to examine these audits and discuss them and get comfortable, either prioritize the fixes or get comfortable with where you are. And take it from there, because obviously if you have a very rapidly evolving website with lots of new products coming out or upgrades and things like that, replacing, you perhaps need to do auditing more often and dedicate more resources to it. But I would certainly at least go for a monthly audit and a monthly meeting with your development team.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. So what do you think about the future of Google Analytics? Obviously, one of the things that is coming out, or has already been out for a while, is App+Web. And there the data model completely changes. So my thoughts of it is that the reports are maybe not as standardized anymore, and they are not as standardized tracking points in there, but you can open it up completely. At verified data, you must be thinking about this already. I mean, there's not a wide adoption of App+Web just yet, and there's probably not yet, there's no reporting API as well. But how do you think about this new approach to event-driven models and in terms of auditing?
I think it makes perfect sense. The idea that web is somehow separate to the rest of your business, whether you're running apps or whether you do point of sales, data tracking, things like that, barcode scanners, it makes sense that has to come together. And that's really about how, Google can keep ahead of the game by doing those things. So it's kind of welcome and very much needed. You're right. The kind of the default model of what is a page view, what is a session, what is a user, that kind of doesn't go away, but it becomes much more customizable. You can define this yourself with Web Plus App. So it's going to be different. I would caution users just now in 2020. It's very much a beta product. I would actually say it's somewhere between alpha and beta. There's a lot missing, as you said. There's no API. There's no measurement protocol defined yet. E-commerce tracking only came out literally a month or so ago. There's no equivalent to custom dimensions and things like that. There's a lot missing, and I'm sure it will come. But at the moment, we generally don't deal with alpha beta products. But it's exciting times, and but I don't think it's really going to matter how you define your data stream. We're looking very much at the hit level. Does a hit contain a particular variable? Does that variable make sense? If we come back to e-commerce, because that's such an easy example to use, if you're expecting transactions to range between $100 and $1,000, we have a rule in our tool that says, hey, if there's one greater than $10,000, flag that as an unusual transaction. May be valid, but you want to know about it. So those type of things, checking a value, making sure it's positive, not negative, looking for duplicates, whether it's a page view or a transaction or something else. We do that very much at the hit level. So yes, we have some work to do to make sure that we're fully compatible. But I don't see it as being a huge change. We might report stuff in terms of sessions, but that's just how Google Analytics does it. If we find a problem, for example, but I don't think it's going to make a huge difference to how we work when we treat things very much about data hits.
Right. Okay. And taking a step out of Google Analytics here, or not out of Google Analytics, but do you think Google Analytics was also, is it the dominant tool because it was free at the beginning, people adopted it rapidly? Do you think that it will remain the dominant tool over the next few years, or is there a trend going on where people say, okay, I want to customize to my business and maybe this platform doesn't allow me to do this anymore?
Well, I think the Web Plus app, the GTM, so the tag manager that gets you installed, the new type of server-side tracking that's coming online. I think those are the three sort of big areas that Google's taken on board, and in many ways is the leader. So it's hard to actually see how Google could ever not be dominant. You're certainly right that free is a big driver. Certainly in the early days, I don't think I would be in this industry if it wasn't for free. The thing that I really like about the Google model is that there is a paid product, of course, the GA360, and it starts at $150,000 per year, and you're committed for a year. So if you're going to go from free to paid, you've got to pony up that kind of money. So it's serious money. But what I like about the free product compared to the paid is, to all intents and purposes, it's almost identical. You have access to all of the same features. The free product is a very, very powerful product in itself. And we have some very big, large brands that use the free product. Why? Because the data requirements are quite low, and the data quantity is relatively low. The reason why, one of the big reasons, there are others, but one of the big reasons you would move from free to paid is data volume. And I really like that type of freemium model. So the classic freemium model is, we give you some basic features for free. If you want anything serious, you have to pay. That's the classic freemium model these days. But Google's taken that on its head. They say, no, you have all of the features available, but it's for 10 million hits per month. And if you have more data than that to process, you have to pay. So their model, which I really like, is you get all of the features, but if you want more power, more horsepower, you pay for it. And I really like that model. And I think that's a big reason, actually, I think, why Google Analytics has been successful. You can really do some clever stuff with a free product, but you can't go more than around about 1 million sessions per month, which is a lot of data. But some websites have a lot more than that, and there's a paid route for them.
Definitely. Cool. So looking out in the future, away from Google Analytics, maybe from data quality as well, what do you think are the biggest challenges for us in the next decade in terms of analytics, maybe, or just take it from there in a sense?
Well, I think I can sum that up, I think, in 3 words: privacy, privacy, privacy.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the big challenge of the next decade. If you're in Europe, we know about the constant pop-ups asking for consent. That drives users nuts, and people just click on them without even thinking or reading. But that doesn't mean they don't want privacy, and I think that's a real challenge. I mean, media agencies and tools as well are trying to come up with clever ways to circumvent the need for consent. So you don't need to have to ask for it. Server-side tracking is potentially one of those. The kind of thinking is being, well, look, hey, if we don't have to set a cookie, we don't have to ask for consent. I think that's flawed thinking. I think you have to ask for consent. It depends on what you're doing with the data. But if you're sending data to third parties, so in other words, not the website that I'm looking at, but some other website that I have no idea why you have a relationship with them, then as a user, I expect to be asked before you send that around. Any personal information, I expect to be asked. Any kind of profiling that could become personal, I expect to be asked. So I think privacy and the challenge, we talked about it earlier with ITP, that's a real challenge as to how to get that right, because those privacy laws are here to stay, without a doubt. And I think it won't just be Europe. I mean, it will be all over. Certainly the free democratic world, I think, the right to privacy has become much more an important topic. And one of the things that I've noticed in the last 10 years, actually, just looking backwards, 10 years ago, I do a lot of talks, if you like, seminars and guest lectures at universities. So I get to speak to younger people half my age, basically. 20-year-olds 10 years ago weren't that bothered about privacy. Maybe you remember those days. Basically, if it's free, give it to me. If it answers my question or solves my problem, give it to me, and I don't care. That really has changed noticeably. So I was talking to some 20-year-olds, not technical people. We're not talking about experts in the industry or analysts, but just general university students, English students, history students, that sort of thing. They're very privacy savvy. They're fully aware of the Snowden scandal and the kind of implications of mass tracking that governments and big tech does. They're very aware of the Cambridge Analytica scandal. I was quite surprised, actually. Really savvy about, essentially, if something's free, if a product's free, then you are the product. And that really, that's really the thinking now between a lot of younger people around about the sort of 20-something. So I think the challenge is, from a data point of view, as well as from a technical point of view, is how do you reassure people and get them to trust you, as well as how do you reduce the amount of invasiveness in order to deliver good quality ads or to deliver a good quality user experience. So I've been banging on about privacy, all my professional career. I remember Jim Stern asking me in 2008, I think it was SES, Search Engine Strategies Conference, what's the next big thing, Brian? And I said, in 2008, it's going to be privacy. And I was wrong. It's the best part of a decade later. And I still think that snowball has been growing and growing and growing. And I think that's the biggest challenge moving forward. Because if people don't want to be tracked and make that decision en masse, which nowadays that kind of mass judgment can happen with social media, it's a lot easier. There goes all the data. And there goes all the analytics. And I do feel we're living on a knife edge as to which way that's going to go, if we get it right or wrong.
Very interesting thoughts. And that sums up our conversation as well, I think, very well. And food for thought, definitely. So thank you, Brian. Is there anything that people can check out? Where can I follow you?
The best place to contact me is LinkedIn. I chat to everybody that connects with me, so please do. I would love people to try the tool, verifieddata.com. Please try that, and would love to get their feedback.
And one more question: when is your next book coming out?
I keep threatening my wife that it's going to be soon. It's going to be soon. It's a lot of effort writing books, and I've had a lot of success. I really have, and I'm very, very humble and very proud of that. Getting unsolicited feedback, people ranking you and giving you feedback on Amazon is really makes my day and makes it all worthwhile. So I would love to do another book. I'm kind of planning next year.
Okay.
That's the kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, definitely. I read this one, and it's definitely a good read. Cool. All right. Thank you, Brian, for your time, and hope to see you at the next Measure Summit, maybe.
Great. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Brian, for these insights on our industry from someone who has truly shaped it as well. I can only recommend to check out Brian's books. I got one right here. Those are really great, and we'll see if there will be new ones coming out. And also have a look at his tool, Verified Data. We have a link in the description down below as well. And by the way, Brian did another session at Measure Summit on the importance of clean data, which you can check out at measuresummit.com. And for now, that's it. Thanks for watching this video. My name is Julian, and till next time.